Hi, I'm Charla with Freezer Meals 101, and today we're making sauce for Pasta Puttanesca. Now, the reason that I decided to give this a try is because my husband and I made this dish on an at-home date night. Where we live, they've had a lot of restrictions with COVID as far as restaurants go, and just anywhere that you could normally go on a date night has been shut down. So we've been getting creative, and a lot of our at-home date nights have involved us making dinner together. And so we try to do that a little bit differently than we would make a normal meal. So like our normal dinners are things where the kids are eating with us, and the kids, it's very kid friendly, and it's usually freezer meals. So on our at-home date nights, we're of course trying to make things a little bit fancier, a little more romantic, or a little more fun. So this was one that my husband actually found the recipe for, and we made it on one of our at-home date nights. Turned out to be so good that we've made it once since and shared it with the kids that time. And I've decided that it would totally work as a freezer meal. There's like no reason why this sauce wouldn't freeze well. Everything in it freezes, and so I'm just adapting the recipe slightly and making this Pasta Puttanesca sauce today for you. So my husband told me this little fun fact. Apparently, Pasta Puttanesca translates kind of, I don't know if it's quite literally, but translates into basically prostitute pasta. So that's not exactly the most romantic date night idea ever, but apparently there was a place in Italy where they would make this sauce, and the smell of it would waft out and kind of like entice the men to come in to eat the pasta and purchase other things, which that part is not the greatest. But anyway, so prostitute pasta or pasta puttanesca or whatever, it does really taste amazing, and the smell, I'm assuming, comes from the anchovy paste combined with the capers and olives and the garlic. So it does have quite a nice smell to it. So anyway, that's just a little history lesson that's not even very accurate, I'm sure, but here we go. Okay, so the recipe calls for oh my goodness, I just broke off the thingy to open this. I'm gonna have to figure out how to get that open. We'll try the other one. But the recipe calls for 1 jar of whole tomatoes, a 28 ounce can of whole tomatoes, and I'm doubling the recipe, so opening that here. Again, I don't know how I'm gonna get this other one open, but I'll figure it out. And it says that you should use Italian tomatoes, so I had never seen these before, but when I went to the grocery store, they actually had these, oh, what are they? Pomodoro San Marzano. They look Italian. It says they're from Italy, and so whatever. This is what we used last time, and it's what we're using today. So we're actually putting these in the blender, and that extra step is something that normally, if I was making freezer meals, I wouldn't want to do because it just takes extra time. We're only making one today. We're not making 130 like last time. So, you know, putting something in the blender is not that hard. Okay, I'm gonna figure out how to get this open, and I'll be right back. Electric can opener did the trick. So here we are, 2 28 ounce cans of Italian tomatoes. Those go in there, and then we're just gonna blend that up. So I'll probably turn the sound off for this part. I don't want to hurt your ears, but pretty blended. Okay. If you've watched my videos before, you'll know that I don't love doing dishes. It's just not my favorite thing. And with 7 kids, there's just a lot of dishes. So I try to make as few dishes as possible. So I'm actually going to use the blender, which I'm gonna have to wash anyway, as the bowl in which to mix the rest of the ingredients. I think that'll work just fine, and then I don't have to dirty another dish. Less dishes for me to do. So we're gonna add some olive oil. I'm not gonna add as much as it calls for because usually you would be like using that to fry up the garlic on the stove, and we're not gonna do that. So, but I do want enough in there for the consistency. Now, normally when I do freezer meals, you know that I used minced garlic from a jar. Just saves me time. It's so much easier, but there are a few exceptions, and a recipe like this is an exception because for something like this, you want to have fresh garlic. So we're just gonna use actual fresh garlic cloves that are minced with our garlic press. I went ahead and peeled those earlier, and I also brought out this paper towel so that I could put the little bits that are left on the paper towel and not have to be running back and forth to the garbage. Just a tiny time saver. So we're actually doing 10 cloves of garlic, but keep in mind we're doubling the recipe, so it calls for 5 cloves of garlic. I'm short, so I have to go on my tippy toes to get this garlic in the blender, but don't mind me. Now I might lose you on this next ingredient. It's anchovy paste. And when my husband told me that he got anchovy paste for this recipe he'd found, I wasn't that sold. However, it was amazing, and it's kind of like in a Caesar salad dressing where you've got that anchovy paste if it's homemade Caesar dressing or from a really good restaurant, and it just gives it that tang. So this sauce does not taste seafoody at all, but it does have that tang from the anchovy paste. So I'm just gonna kind of measure that out here and add that to our blender. Oh, also I'm going to unplug my blender because I don't want to accidentally push one of the buttons and blend up my olives or capers or anything that shouldn't be blended. So unplugging it will avoid that catastrophe. So because we're doubling the recipe, you're gonna put 4 teaspoons of anchovy paste in there. I'm gonna put the link to the recipe down below. My husband got it off a site called Epicurious, so I'll stick that down below. But again, I'm adapting it for the freezer, for it to be freezer friendly. So just kind of go by this video and the recipe combined, and you should be able to make it. Okay, now we're adding some red pepper flakes. As always, I'm gonna add more than it calls for because we love our spice in this family. We love things spicy, and especially when it comes to pasta. Now, when we made this the second time, we actually went to a local Italian restaurant and bought fresh pasta to cook at home. It makes such a difference. They make it fresh every day, and it just tastes better, and it cooks up really fast compared to the pasta that you buy in the store, unless you buy fresh pasta in the store. Anyway, just another tip to make this recipe a little bit more elevated and make it worthy of an at-home date night. Now we're gonna add our pitted Kalamata olives. I sliced them in half. We love olives and capers, so I did add a little more than what it called for, but it calls for half a cup, so it would have been about 1 cup total, and I did like a cup and a half, like not a lot more, but just, you know, enough. And then capers called for what, 2 tablespoons, so 4 tablespoons since we're doubling, and that's a 1/4 cup, and I did about, yeah, like less than half a cup, so I didn't double the amount, just added, I was just generous with the capers, let's put it that way. So the original recipe also calls for fresh basil, quite a bit of fresh basil actually, and you could absolutely add it in at this point. I've added fresh basil into freezer meals and it's totally fine, but in our case, we actually grow basil at home. We have an indoor garden that we grow herbs in, and basil is pretty prolific here. I'm growing some right now, and by the time I go to use this freezer meal, there will be a lot of basil for me to be able to add in. And so when I'm cooking it up on the skillet, I'll throw in some of that fresh basil just to give it, you know, a little bit of that fresh boost. But if you had fresh basil on hand and you wanted to add it now because you weren't sure that you'd have it at the time that you actually go to pull this out of the freezer, then absolutely go and add that basil now. I'm just giving this a stir in our blender there. Again, you could totally do this in a bowl if you were not as adverse to extra dishes as I am. And we're going to pour it into some freezer bags. So I wasn't sure if I should use large freezer bags or medium. I kind of think I'm gonna try it in the medium. So I'm gonna grab that. You know what, I changed my mind. I used to have this perfect cup for holding open my medium bags, and then it broke, and I don't have anything that's good for holding open my medium bags now. So since I don't want to be all awkward on camera trying to like hold my bag open and pour, and you know, and I don't have a second person today to help me, I'm just gonna do large bags. But I think you could get away with doing medium-sized bags for this recipe, and then you could also do it in smaller portions if you wanted, but the large bags hold open easier for me, and so that's why I'm choosing to use those today. Now the recipe calls for a pinch of sugar. I didn't add that. You can if you want. Sugar can be good to cut the acidity of the tomatoes, but you can choose whichever way you want to do it. If you are looking for other freezer meal recipes and ideas to be able to feed your family more easily and spend more time with your family instead of always being stuck in the kitchen, be sure to subscribe to me here on Freezer Meals 101. Okay, see, that totally would have fit in a medium bag next time. So I'm just gonna fill up our bags, and that poured really easily. I'm actually glad that I did this in the blender rather than transferring it to a bowl, not just for the dishes, but also because it poured so much easier because of the spout. So we'll definitely be doing that next time. Yeah, now I'm kind of disappointed that I didn't do it in the medium bag. I feel like it's wasteful. Anyway, you live and learn. Okay, so you're gonna remove the air from the bag, because when you're doing freezer cooking, air is the enemy. And you have this beautiful Pasta Puttanesca sauce with the capers, the Kalamata olives. When you go to serve this, use some Asiago or Parmesan cheese to sprinkle on top if you're able to, and especially if it's for a special at-home date night or for Valentine's Day or something romantic or whatever. You might want to get that fresh pasta I was talking about. You can also find it in the deli section of your grocery store. And you can also add some more red pepper flakes if you want to spice it up a bit. And then again, if you haven't added the basil at this point, you'll add that as you're cooking it in the skillet. Serve it over pasta, maybe have a side salad. If you want, you can have a glass of wine, whatever. You have your own little Italian night with your Pasta Puttanesca. There we go. Thanks for joining me today on this cooking adventure, guys, and happy cooking!